Pressure by the United States to remove Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro from power. What can we expect from the region? Hello, I'm Anand Naidu, and this is The Heat. Venezuela entered the fifth day of a blackout. Power was restored to some areas of the country over the weekend, but service often lasted just a few hours before dropping out again. The blackout comes at a time when Venezuela is plagued by economic despair, including shortages of goods and food. For more, we turn now to CGTN's Stephen Gibbs. He's in Caracas. And Stephen, the government is blaming the blackout on U.S. sabotage, although it didn't present any evidence. What can you tell us about the situation there?
Well, the latest really from Caracas is that, as you mentioned, power is returning to the capital, but to a certain extent at the cost of the rest of the country. We have been receiving reports in the last few hours of looting in Maracaibo, a city close to the border with Colombia. And also, as the power has come back to the capital, we've seen some problems with that. The explosion of more than one transformer here, that's one of the consequences of trying to put the power back on. We've also seen in the last few hours evidence of a sort of secondary crisis here, and that is concerning the water supply to the capital. There are at least 2 million people living in Caracas. They've long had water problems, but it seems that because electricity is needed from the rest of the country to supply the capital, that has been a very serious problem. Now, President Maduro is blaming almost all of these problems on the United States, alleging that there was a cyber attack against one of the main, or the main, hydroelectric power station of Venezuela. He says that is really what is behind all this. Now, his rival president, Juan Guaido, disputes that. He says that effectively the government is now kind of reaping the consequences of its own inefficiency. Just a few moments ago, or a few hours ago, here in Caracas, Juan Guaido did address the press, and this is what he had to say.
That's why we are today asking the Parliament to declare a national state of alarm in Venezuela, a state of emergency, of tragedy, of catastrophe that Venezuela is living today. And this blackout wasn't the product of a mudslide, of a quake, of a tornado. It's the result of corruption.
Now, Stephen, the United States is putting a lot of pressure on Maduro to step down with sanctions that we see are crippling Venezuela's economy. How is that being seen in Venezuela and in the region?
Well, broadly in the region, I mean, of course, there are big exceptions, including, for example, Cuba and Nicaragua, but broadly in the region, those sanctions are supported. Most of the countries, particularly in South America, do not actually now recognize President Maduro as the legitimate president of Venezuela. They support Juan Guaido. The reason they do that is that this is a crisis that's been going on for a few years, and it is affecting those countries, particularly via migration. And also there has been a political shift in this region to the right over the last 5 years or so. So there are many more countries that are sympathetic to the United States point of view. Now, within Venezuela, I think it's fair to say that broadly, people do blame the crisis on President Maduro. That's certainly been the case over the last, say, couple of years. He can't command full support of this nation by any stretch of the imagination. But what we are seeing now, of course, is the beginning of far more serious U.S. sanctions. And this is effectively a gamble on the part of the United States, whether they want to achieve regime change here. They want Juan Guaido to come in as president. Now, if that doesn't happen, it is likely that the situation here will get a lot more serious. Those economic sanctions will really begin to hit. And then, of course, you have probably a much more serious migration crisis. So these are absolutely crucial days and weeks ahead for Venezuela.
Great, Stephen. Thanks a lot. That's CGTN Stephen Gibbs talking to us from Caracas.